Hi, Elise Dewsberry here with another one of my How Not to Get Feedback from Elise vlogs. This is part of my little mini series on the work of a scene. Last month I talked about the moment before at the beginning of a scene. Now I want to talk about, obviously plot is going to happen during a scene. So obviously that is probably one of the most important things that's going to happen in your musical is some plot. Now, in any given scene. The two things that I want you to think about, this is a short one, but it's important and it relates back to some other things that I've talked about. Um, you can deliver plot through exposition or through action. And that relates directly to something I talked about last year about the adage of show, don't tell. So if you put those two things together, you can imagine that in some ways exposition equals showing, and exposition equals telling, and plot equals, or action equals showing. So you are going to have to deliver some exposition from time to time in any given scene, but you always want to err on the side of action if you can. So I think in every instance, whenever you're trying to decide what's going to happen, rather than having a character run on stage and say, "Oh, you have no idea what I just saw. So and so just shot so and so," or I just told so and so this. When you find your character saying things like, "I just saw," or "let me tell you," or "let me explain," or any of the things that automatically those trigger us to know we're about to get exposition. We're about to hear about something that did not happen in front of us, that somebody witnessed, that happened in between scenes, possibly that happened in a previous scene, although of course you don't want to get repetitious and have somebody come in and start talking about something we actually did see in a previous scene. Um, and I know you can't always get away for an entire show without writing something, without having somebody come in and talk about something that we didn't see. But always stop for a moment when you find yourself doing that and say, is there a way that I could show this? Is there a way that I could create a scene in which action would develop this, would deliver this aspect of the plot, and that my audience would get informed by watching something happen instead of by listening to someone tell them something. I can't tell you how vitally important this is. You aren't always going, you aren't going to be able to do it 100% of the time, but you can do it most of the time and should do it most of the time. So whenever you find yourself doing it, whenever you find yourself having things happen off stage and somebody come in to explain it or talk about it, stop and think, is there a better way for me to do this? Sometimes your reasoning for doing it, often I think the reason for doing it is that the scene in which it would happen would be too difficult to happen on stage. It's a fight sequence. It involves a car. It involves someone flying in an airplane, or a different set piece that you don't want to use, or it involves extra characters that you don't want in your cast. So there's some kind of logistical reason why you would prefer to have it happen off stage. Okay, but then I would challenge you to to try and figure out a way to make that happen, and to not worry quite so much perhaps about the logistical challenge that will be given to your creative team when it's time to produce the show, because there are many, many magical ways of sorting those things out these days. I would hope that your first thought is, can I find a way to make this plot point active, to have it happen in action, in present time, in front of my audience, as opposed to delivering it through exposition as much as you possibly can. Now, if you do have to deliver it through exposition, remember that uh, that people who know each other rarely have any reason to discuss things that they both know. Um, so that this goes back to, I'm pretty sure that I already did a discussion of stranger and neighbor diction. I'm not sure if I did or not, or exposition, I mean. Um, when people know each other, they have a different way. Like if I were to pick up the phone, I would not say, "Oh, hi there, my husband that I married 36 years ago." I just say, "Oh, hi," or "Hi, Stephen." Um, so you have to find a different way to deliver that kind of exposition if it's between people who know each other, and that's why sometimes it can be useful to introduce a stranger into the scene, because sometimes a stranger needs to have things explained to them, which is useful for the audience. So you have to bear all of that in mind when you're delivering plot, which is probably the most important thing that a scene does, is deliver plot. And I would just caution you, as much as humanly possible, try to have that happen through action as opposed to exposition as much as you possibly can. Okay, that's it for this one. See you next.